The ECO is the proposed name for the common currency that the West African Monetary Zone plans to introduce in the framework of Economic Community of West African States. After its introduction, the goal is to merge the new currency with the West African CFA franc at a later date. This will create a common currency for much of West Africa. 10 criteria for the ECO to be implemented. 10 criteria set out by the West African Monetary Institute must be met. These criteria are known as the 4 primary convergence criteria and 6 secondary convergence criteria. Up to the fiscal year 2011, only Ghana have been able to meet all the primary criteria in any single fiscal year. The 4 primary criteria to be achieved by each member country are a single-digit inflation rate at the end of each year, a fiscal deficit of no more than 4% of the GDP, a central bank deficit financing of no more than 10% of the previous year's tax revenues, gross external reserves that can give import cover for a minimum of 3 months. The 6 secondary criteria to be achieved by each member country are: prohibition of new domestic default payments and liquidation of existing ones. Tax revenue should be equal to or greater than 20% of the GDP. Wage bill to tax revenue equal to or less than 35%. Public investment to tax revenue equal to or greater than 20%. A stable real exchange rate. A positive real interest rate. History of the currency. The goal of a common currency, first in the ECOWAS countries not using the West African CFA franc and later in the whole ECOWAS area, was officially stated in December 2000 in connection with the formal launch of WAMZ. The ECO was first planned to be introduced in 2003, but this was postponed several times to 2005, 2010 and 2014. At a meeting of the Convergence Council of Ministers and Governors of West Africa on the 25th of May 2009, the start of the currency was rescheduled to 2015 due to the international economic crisis. It was also planned at the December 2009 meeting that after the ECO is launched, work will begin to merge it with the West African CFA franc. This was planned to be achieved by 2020. In 2001, the West African Monetary Institute was set up with headquarters in Accra, Ghana. It is to be an interim organization in preparation for the future West African Central Bank. Its function and organization are inspired by the European Monetary Institute, in such a way that WAMI will provide a framework for central banks in the WAMZ to start the integration and begin preliminary preparations for the printing and minting of the physical money, just as EMI did before in the Eurozone before the introduction of the euro. The current Director General is Mr. J.H.T. Ikicha. However, recent assessment of the member countries' efforts to meet the criteria are very bleak. The performance scorecard presented at the 2012 annual statutory meetings of the WAMZ shows that GDP growth was projected to decline to 6.9% in 2012, from 8.7% in 2011. The convergence scale of the whole WAMZ area was also projected to go down from a score of 79.2% in 2011 to 62.5% in 2012, as no member met all the convergence criteria. The average annual inflation rate also increased from 11.6% in 2011 to 12.6% in 2012. The Director of Multilateral Surveillance ECOWAS Commission, Lasani Kabor, described the performance as dismal, but he also affirmed the commitment of his commission to the establishment of the ECO.